बजा जा रे, बंसी बजा जा रे।
हम नहीं किसी के दास, हमें अब लगता डर।
बात क्या कुछ बोल रही, बात क्या कुछ बोल रही। उस पर आए हाथ के कीचड़ सने घटोगा जल लगा है अमृत मुझे कुछ राज उसका खोल रही कुछ।
देवी माँ केंचम्मा,
देवी माँ केंचम्मा,
देवी माँ केंचम्मा,
देवी माँ केंचम्मा।
कैसे बखानूं मैं तेरी महिमा,
कैसे बखानूं मैं तेरी महिमा।
देवी माँ केंचम्मा,
देवी माँ केंचम्मा।
सास की आंखें जलता पलीता,
भूखी बहू का पेट है रीता।
नहीं सुपारी पत्थर बनती, कुंवारी गर्भ न धारण करती।
रंग गई धरती लाल है माँ,
वो लाल असुर तूने मारा है माँ।
देवी माँ केंचम्मा। देवी माँ केंचम्मा।
बामन पुरोहित जो भिंडी समाए,
बने जो भट्ट तो कद्दू हो जाए।
बने जो भट्ट तो कद्दू हो जाए।
भट्ट ने पकड़ी काशी की राह,
पेट में उसके न सोना समाए।
भट्ट चला है काशी की राह, भूखी बहू है रीति की रीति।
कभी सुपारी क्या पत्थर बनती,
कभी सुपारी क्या पत्थर बनती।
देवी माँ केंचम्मा।
देवी माँ केंचम्मा।
लाल असुर तूने मारा है माँ,
लाल असुर तूने मारा है माँ। देवी माँ केंचम्मा। देवी माँ केंचम्मा। देवी माँ केंचम्मा। देवी माँ केंचम्मा।
धर्मकार की घरनी व्याकुल प्रसव वेदना से, सीने को अधबान चलाता सो जाते जैसे। धर्मकार की घरनी व्याकुल प्रसव वेदना से, सीने को अधबान चलाता सो जाते जैसे। बरतीली बदली के पीछे रवि कुमल आया रे, आया हंसता गाता आया उत्सव आया रे, उत्सव आया रे। बरसीली बदली के पीछे रवि कुमल आया रे, आया हंसता गाता आया उत्सव आया रे, उत्सव आया रे। हर पल बिजली वैसी राजा की तलवार, राज जीतने आया दुश्मन भाग रहा है हार। गिरती हर पल बिजली वैसी राजा की तलवार, राज जीतने आया दुश्मन भाग रहा है हार। कमल हार ने राजा का सीना चमकाया रे, आया हंसता गाता आया उत्सव आया रे, उत्सव आया रे।
Good evening. Welcome to the Internet Archive. My name's Carl Malamud. I'm president of Public Resource. We're gathered here tonight in this beautiful temple of knowledge to celebrate 3 collections devoted to the Republic of India. These collections are, first, a mirror of the Digital Library of India. Second, a collection that I've called Hind Swaraj, devoted to the history of India. And third, a collection of 19,000 important Indian technical public safety documents. These collections have already had tens of millions of views, and we're so pleased to be able to tell you about this wonderful cooperation between those of us here in America and our colleagues and friends in India. It's only fitting that the 2 largest and greatest democracies of our modern time should be united in the goal of providing universal access to all knowledge. Our program tonight will proceed as follows. First, we're going to hear from Brewster Kahle, the founder of the Internet Archive. Then we're honored to have with us the Honorable Venkateshan Ashok, the General Counsel. Ambassador Ashok will introduce Sam Pitroda, and I will close with a few remarks. And at the end, there will be the presentation of a bell. Our first speaker is Brewster Kahle. He and I have walked down the internet road together for the last 30 years. I consider him a valued colleague and a close friend. In 1996, he came to me and said he was going to archive the web. And was I still using my tape jukebox I had bought for the SEC's Edgar system? Even then, the World Wide Web seemed immense, and I thought it was an incredibly ambitious goal. But I gave him that DLT tape jukebox, and I've watched in amazement for the last 21 years as he's built the Internet Archive into the world's largest digital library, a public service for the benefit of mankind and one of the cornerstones of our modern internet. Please welcome Brewster Kahle, the librarian of the Internet Archive and our host.
Thank you, Carl, and our honored guests. And thank you for coming. How many people is this the first time you've been to the Internet Archive? Oh, well, welcome to our place of knowledge. So the Internet Archive, founded 20 years ago, the idea was to try to build, let's just pause just a moment for the, to build universal access to all knowledge. That the idea that you could bring all of the published works of humankind to anybody that wanted to have access to it. All the books, music, video, web pages, software, all of it. And so this organization is here to try to work with others to try to make this dream come true. This can't be done by a small group. This can only be done by a large groundswell of interest to bring this together. But to give you a little bit of an idea of where you are, because you're in pews, you are in an old church that was a Christian Science church. And we bought this church because the outside matched our logo. Our logo was the Greek Parthenon that was reminiscent for us of the Library of Alexandria. The Library of Alexandria, the great library of 300 BC to maybe 300 or 400 AD, was the center of learning. And now it is best known for not being here anymore. But if they'd made a copy and put it in India, or if they'd made a copy and put it in China, we would have the other works of Aristotle, the other plays of Euripides. But we don't. So let's not make that mistake this time. Let's go and work together and put copies in other places so that as the centuries go by, this generation's knowledge is not lost to the world forever. To give you just also a little bit of an idea, if you crane your necks and look to the back of the there are machines there that have the little blinking lights. These are servers of the Internet Archive. These are actually the servers, some of them, that are serving the world, the primary copy of books, music, video, web pages. I've been designing supercomputers my whole career. I like these because the lights actually mean something. Every time a light blinks is either somebody uploading something or downloading something from the Internet Archive. We get between 4 million and 5 million people every day getting access to these from all over the world. About the 300th most popular website. And the reason is because people want to know. They want access to these materials. They really deeply care. And so these are open stacks and a sort of a sign of openness. So the project that I'm very, very happy that we are working together and bringing around tonight is bringing together one of the collections is the Digital Library of India, which the Internet Archive worked on 15 years ago with the government of India and the government of China. There were hundreds of man-years of work that was put in to take these beautiful works and put them online. And the Internet Archive helped by supplying some of the technologies, and now it's all coming back together again tonight. And really a large thank you for that is to Carl Malamud. And with that, I will turn it back over to you.
I gave Brewster 10 minutes and he used 4. That's efficiency. Thank you, Brewster. I'm really pleased to be able to introduce our next guest, the Honorable Venkateshan Ashok, the Consul General of India here in San Francisco. Ambassador Ashok has been with the Indian Foreign Service since 1982. He served as ambassador to Zimbabwe and the Czech Republic, has held many senior positions in the Ministry of External Affairs. As Consul General, his territory stretches from Arizona to Montana to the West Coast and goes as far as Guam and Hawaii and Alaska. There are 4.5 million overseas Indians in America, and the Consul General plays a vital role in assisting them and in assisting all Americans that work and visit in India. Please join me in welcoming Ambassador Ashok.
Thank you very much, Carl, for that very warm introduction. Good evening, and I'm very happy to see that we have a very interested audience, as also people who are not necessarily listening but present. So I think it's a beautiful place that we have here, but I would like to begin by applauding the work put in by Dr. Sam Pitroda and Mr. Carl Malamud in putting together this effort for bringing the digitized versions of the DLI of the Digital Library of India and of the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi, as also the additional collections which have been brought in. I think it's a remarkable statement, and just now we heard Brewster Kahle mentioning that Alexandria would have been a great resource for the world, which we have lost. We should not lose another Alexandria, because before Alexandria was lost, there was another loss in China in 220 BC, when another library was burned down by an emperor who didn't want knowledge to spread. So it's very critical that, and then we've had the libraries destroyed in India also, in Vikramashila, Nalanda, and Takshashila. So I think it's very important that we have this mirror of the DLI, which will be a public resource and will enable people, not just contemporary to us, but way up in the future, to know what was in the past and what will be today's people's future. So I think that is a remarkable thing, because in Indian philosophical traditions and culture, Smriti and Shruti are the two essential elements. Shruti being the heard component, what you hear, and Smriti being what you remember. And although, it is traditional for scholars of Hindu philosophy to say that the Vedas and the other books, the famous Aranyakas, the Upanishads and so on, are maybe 1,000 years before Christ, or maybe even as late as four centuries after Christ, when they were written down. But way before they were written down, they were a corpus in the brains of the gurus, the sages, the rishis, who passed it down from generation to generation. And it was because of the Shruti and the Smriti that they made sure that the syntax, the rhythm, the meter were perfect, and there was no error in transmission. So in a sense, it was a cloud of a different kind, which they were trying to transmit from generation to generation. And this is also the reason why in Sanskrit you speak with a particular rhythm and a particular meter, because the vibrations are very critical in achieving the goal. I think we are very lucky in India to have, from time to time, people who have made great contributions. In contemporary times, in the last 50 years or so, we've had problems. We had a tremendous shortage of milk. I remember as a student going in school, coming back from school, picking up metal tokens and going to the milk booth and picking up milk for the family. But then along came Dr. Kurian Varghese, who revolutionized the whole story of milk. And today, India is the largest producer of milk in the world. We had an awful transportation system in Delhi, one of the worst in the world. And one thought, now it could never be bettered. But then along came Sridharan, and we had the Delhi Metro, which is even today an example of how an excellent metro can be run. And then, of course, we have our very own Satyanarayan Gangaram Pitroda, or Sam Pitroda as you all know him, who changed the face of India. And I would divide India into two zones. This is the pre-Pitroda period of telephones and the post-Pitroda period of telephones. That is the difference which you can see when you see the change which he has brought in. And I am not exaggerating, but I feel very strongly about this because my father was serving in Manipur. We were in Delhi. And it would take over 2 days to reach him by what was called a trunk call. I don't think anybody under the age of 40 here will know what a trunk call is. So we used to register the trunk call. And since you had to wait 36 to 48 hours, if you were not at home at the time when it matured, then you went back in the waiting list to square one. So on the other hand, my mother, and I mean this sincerely, still says a prayer to Dr. Pitroda, because whenever I call her, I'm able to reach her from any corner of the globe. So India has really been transformed in terms of telecommunications, and we have much to thank Dr. Pitroda for that. He is an inventor, an engineer, an entrepreneur, a development thinker, a policy maker. And we share some things in common. He was born in Orissa, even though he doesn't come from Orissa. I was born in Orissa, even though I also don't come from Orissa. And he went to IIT, which is Illinois Institute of Technology. I also went to IIT, but the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. So, but it was wonderful to see the story of transformation from Westcom to a millionaire, and then his desire to give back and go to India. And I loved the story he told about the funeral for telephones and the chalta hai or let it be attitude of the Indian. I think that is an attitude which even today persists to some extent, and that has to be changed if India has to change. And then the rest of the story is known to most of you, how the Center for Development of Telematics came up, the technology missions for rural drinking water, literacy, immunization, edible oils, telecommunications, from the digital diary to the mobile wallet to supercomputing to polio eradication. There's been virtually no field that he left. And the Knowledge Pentagon, where he speaks of access, concepts, creation, application, and services. And the National Knowledge Mission, which he was shepherding, finally bringing us to what we proudly call Digital India today through the unique identity system, the GIS system, and the innovation that he has led to contributing in different parts of our country and which have spread now to other countries as well. Thank you, Dr. Pitroda, for your remarkable contribution, and we'd love to hear you speak about how things have developed. Thank you.
Ambassador Venkatesh and Ashok, my friend Carl, whom I have known now for several years and have worked together on and off in India and in the US. Our host, Brewster Kyle. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is indeed a special privilege for me to be here with you on this special event to really talk about sharing knowledge between India and the USA. My interest in this project really started way early when I was chairing National Knowledge Commission set up by Dr. Manmohan Singh in mid-2006 or so. At that point in time, we were really interested in building institutions and infrastructure India would need to drive knowledge-based economy in the 21st century. We essentially focused on access to knowledge, which included libraries, networks, translations, affirmative action programs, reservations, quotas, broadband networks. We looked at all kinds of education from primary to secondary to school, vocational, university education, medical education, distance learning, open sourceware, teachers training. And then we also looked at creation of knowledge. Who creates knowledge? How knowledge is created? Coupled with that, we looked at intellectual property, patents, copyright, trademarks, and application of knowledge in agriculture, health, and small and medium-scale industries. And finally, the role of knowledge in governance. As a result of this initiative, we built National Knowledge Network. We built variety of portals for environment, energy, water, teachers training. And then finally, we built a massive portal on Mahatma Gandhi. In my early days, I went to a Gandhian school as a young boy of 10. And all of the Gandhian values were sort of engraved in our day-to-day life. Being Gujarati, family living in Orissa, Gandhi was the only connection for my parents to Gujarat. And we constantly kept Gandhi alive in our thoughts, in our day-to-day activities. Just about that time when we were working on the Gandhi portal, I came across the work of Carl, and we got connected. And Carl had this mission to take standards from government documents and put it on internet. And I thought it was a very important initiative. But every time Carl tried to do that, he was hit by court cases from the governments. Because all governments feel that public standards, whether it has to do with safety, fire, or building codes, are properties of the government, and Carl, by putting it on the web, is violating IP laws. So when I heard about that, I got even more excited, because to me, it was Gandhian way of satyagraha. I said, Carl, we need to fight this battle. They may be legally right, but they are morally wrong. Because all these standards are really for public safety, public good. And how could you then not allow access to these standards to larger public? Why do I have to buy standards for electrical wiring in my house when I know that bad wiring could be a fire hazard? But governments don't allow you to do that. So Carl is faced with court cases all over the world, in US, in Germany, in India, and you name it. And our job is to fight this, mainly on the moral ground, that this is public information, it should be made public, and no one should listen to old obsolete laws by the government. So when I look at internet and the power of internet, I realize that we are far behind in our mindset to really deal with the opportunities knowledge and internet provides us. Many times in India, I used to say that we have 19th century mindset, 20th century processes, and 21st century information age opportunities. And what Carl is trying to do with standards is really to bring to public notice that we must change our laws. Everywhere you look around, you find that the processes are all obsolete. Nowhere you will find anyone standing up to the old processes and say, this needs to go, and we need to create new processes, new laws. Some of it is happening, but not at the pace it should. So when we were looking at knowledge economy, we also realized that knowledge is really the fourth pillar of the democracy of the future. Today there are three pillars of democracy: executive, judiciary, and legislative. We are convinced that the knowledge and information is the key to the democracy of tomorrow. And somehow this message has not really been communicated effectively to large number of people. Today, on one hand, we have all the laws which are based on economy of scarcity, when we live in a world where we have economy of abundance. We can produce a lot of food. Just to give you an example, in India, not too long ago, people thought that India will not be able to feed 600 million people. India was considered basket case. Today, not only India can feed 1.2 billion, but India has surplus food. But at the same time, 200 million people are hungry in India, because we have not used information technology to really get all the logistics in place to deliver food to the right people at the right time. These are the challenges that need new mindset, new thinking. And this really brings me to the thought that I have been working on for quite some time. I believe that the world essentially needs to be redesigned. And Carl and I have been having this conversation for about 2 years. World was last designed by US after World War II with UN, World Bank, IMF, NATO, WTO, GDP, GNP, per capita income, balance of payment, trade deficit, and all kinds of indicators. Right after that design, world got decolonized in a short period of 20 years. Deng Xiaoping came in and said, I'm going to combine capitalism with communism. Gorbachev came in and said exactly opposite is what Soviet Union needs. He sort of failed in his experiment, but he also succeeded in his experiment in releasing energy of lots of small countries. And everyone came out with the same aspirations of democracy, free markets, capitalism, human rights, which was the basic thesis of the old design. But design worked well for US. This is something that is not scalable, desirable, workable for a large number of countries in the world. And information gives us an opportunity to create a new design which is more focused on inclusion, human needs, new economic measurements, regenerative economy, focus on environment, conservation as opposed to consumption, and finally, non-violence. Again, that ties into Gandhian thought. I believe Gandhi is more relevant to the world today than ever before in the history. Through internet, we can really reach out to large number of young with Gandhian thought. With all the things we have in the world, with the new technology and the possibilities, there is hardly any reason to fight. Because there is just so much that is going to happen in the next 20 years in terms of longevity, production, food, transportation, communication, medicine, environment, energy. And this should give whole new way of restructuring our societies. There is very little conversation today about redesigning the world. Everybody is locked into the old design. Everybody thinks we must copy US and we must do what US has put on the table 70 years ago. I am one of those who firmly believe that that design just doesn't work anymore. And I think what Carl and Internet Archives and all others are trying to do, in a sense, is to democratize information, empower people, give them more rights to their own destiny, make them participate in the democracy. Today, in many countries, there is democracy, but there is very little freedom to act. And Internet Archives, Internet, and putting all kinds of these documents in the hands of larger public, make it available, accessible anytime, anywhere, at almost no cost, really gives whole different dimension to the future of the world. I am very excited about the potential. I want to be party to it. I am delighted that I have had the opportunity today to be here with Carl. Carl and I went to India last year in October, on October 2nd. We had a major event at Gandhi Ashram, where I had called a meeting of about 100 people. And we all spent a day thinking about how do we take Gandhian thought outside? How do we bring non-violence in homes, communities, cities, states, countries, between countries. Unfortunately, in the world, there are hardly any institutions on non-violence. All of the people who discuss peace at the table are basically from military. They have no interest in non-violence. Non-violence is never taught. I live in Chicago. I lived in Chicago for 53 years. And let me tell you, with all the technology and wealth, with all the expertise, south side of Chicago hasn't changed at all in 53 years. We have more gun shootings in south side of Chicago than ever before. And there is absolutely no reason for it. You'll be surprised to know that in US, almost 1% of the population is in prison. Largest number of prisoners per 100 people are in the US. I'm told world average is about 1 person per 1,000, and US is 1 person per 100, which is unthinkable. Through information technology, through all of the stuff we are doing today, I think we need to spread knowledge to large number of people, equip them with the right tools, and that's what we are trying to do here. To take 500,000 books from India and put it on Internet Archive is a massive task. I know that there are some great books in Indian languages, in Gujarati, Bengali, Oriya, Tamil, Hindi, which world audience doesn't get to read. They don't even know that this literature is meaningful. Every time people talk about literature, it's all about English literature. No one even thinks about Tamil literature. 2 months ago, I met a friend of mine. He said he found a book in the library in Tamil Nadu, 600-year-old book written, where he said he went through a chapter on child rearing. And he said, if I translate that chapter today in English, all of the doctors would be surprised. But somehow that literature is lost because it's in local language. We need machine translation capabilities, which can take a lot of the good books out of these different languages and put it in English. And what Carl has tried to do is also put in some of the Indian languages books on Internet Archives, which is a great contribution. It's a good beginning, and I hope more and more books from other Indian languages get on Internet Archives. Carl, I want to thank you for all your hard work. Sincerely appreciate what you have done, and I believe you will tell us a little more about Internet Archives, all the books you have put in, and educate all of us a little more about what's going on. I'm delighted to be here at Internet Archives. It is indeed like coming to a temple. It means a lot to me because it is a temple of knowledge. I had no idea about the building. I had read about it. I had heard about this from Carl. But I'm so happy to be here. And I hope I come here more often and participate, work with you all, and really learn a bit about what's going on here. With this, once again, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank my colleagues on the panel. And I also want to identify a few key people that I must name because they are my close friends and family and they are here. To begin with, I am delighted that my own granddaughter, Arya, is here. This is the first time she has heard me speak, and she kept asking me. She said, Dada is grandfather. She says, what are you going to talk about? And I said, I don't know. She said, have you made notes? I said, no. She said, "Are you going to talk about your telephone work in India?" I said, "No." So then she again asked, she said, "But then what are you going to talk about?" So I'm delighted that she's here. My daughter is also here. And when I give public speeches, I worry about her, because I have to make her happy. If I don't give a good speech, she will tell me, "Dad, that wasn't good." Then I have my wife here, my daughter-in-law here, a very close friend of mine, member of parliament from India, Dinesh Trivedi, is here with his family, his wife and his son. Another friend of mine, Rajat Gupta, is here. Rajat, thanks for coming. And finally, another friend of mine, Nishit Desai, and his whole family has come from Mumbai. Thank you, Nishit Bhai. And thank you all for coming here. And thank you for hosting us. Thank you. It's 20 minutes, I was told. It's 20 minutes now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. I had the great pleasure of tagging along with Sam in October as he went barnstorming through India. As he said, we spoke at the Sabarmati Ashram on Gandhiji's birthday. There were speeches to the Indian Institution of Engineers, the Mayo Boys College, Rajasthan Central University, and everywhere he was mobbed with admirers. When we got out of the car at Gandhi's ashram, there were at least 100 people who surrounded him taking selfies. His contributions to India for over 50 years, from bringing telephones to every village, to his more recent work advising prime ministers, creating food banks, and so many other things, have been immense. Thank you for joining us tonight, Sam. I have a few closing thoughts, but before I get to those, I would be remiss if I did not thank some of the people on whose shoulders we stand tonight. The Digital Library of India would never have been possible without the visionary efforts of Carnegie Mellon University and the Million Books Project, pioneered by Professor Raj Reddy and Dean Gloria St. Clair. In India, the Digital Library of India project has been headed by a distinguished computer scientist, Professor Narayana Swami Balakrishnan. The Digital Library of India is now a project of the Government of India with 25 scan centers throughout the country, and it's a huge undertaking. The library has 550,000 books, and we have over 400,000 of those spinning and available today here at the Internet Archive. We're really delighted to be working this closely with the project. It's a remarkable collection, particularly when it comes to Indian languages. There are over 45,000 books in Hindi, 33,000 in Sanskrit, 30,000 in Bengali, and much more. Overall, there are 50 different languages represented in the collection. When books are ingested here at the Internet Archive, you'll see that in addition to the basic PDF file, they're run through optical character recognition. And in addition to OCR, you'll see that the books are transformed into formats that work with your ebook reader, your Kindle, your tablet. You can search across the collections using advanced criteria like language and date and things of that sort. And you can even search inside the books. One of the things we're trying to do here on the collection is help improve the metadata, things like titles and creators. One of the engineers here at the Internet Archive has been experimenting with fuzzy matching. It's a computer science technique on titles and creators and other metadata fields to try and link each book to identifiers like ISBN numbers and Open Library card catalog numbers. You'll notice at the bottom of each Digital Library of India item, there's a spot for reviews. You can say, I like this book, I don't like this book. Professor Dominique Vujastic, a distinguished Sanskrit scholar at the University of Alberta, has been using that space to add much better metadata to dozens of books that he happens to know about from his scholarly work. You could do the same thing. If you speak Gujarati, for example, go through some of the 13,000 Gujarati texts and use the review space to let us know if there's a better title or author, or maybe we just got it all wrong. We need your help. Our second collection tonight is Hind Swaraj, a project I've had a lot of fun putting together. This started when I went to see Sam a while back, and while we were chatting, he pulled out his laptop and he asked me, "Do you have a stick?" I handed him a USB drive, and we kept on talking, and at the end he handed me 9 gigabytes of PDF files, and I asked him what they were. He said, "That's 100 volumes of the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi in the new electronic edition." And I was astounded. The 100 volumes of the collected works was created by the Sabarmati Ashram, in particular by Ms. Dina Patel, who has toiled for years with a team of volunteers to create this definitive electronic edition of the works of the Mahatma. Truly a monumental accomplishment. She's now putting together the resources to create the Hindi edition of all 100 volumes, and I'm looking forward to seeing that come together. It's been a real pleasure working with her. When I posted the collected works, I started looking around the net for other resources in a similar vein, and I found the complete works of Jawaharlal Nehru on a government server, but not in a terribly useful format. So I assembled those into PDF files. There were 3 volumes missing, and I was able to buy 2 of them and get them scanned, and I just ordered the last one. I just found it. So we're almost complete with 77 of the 78 volumes. Now, likewise, the first 20 volumes of the complete works of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar were also on a government web server, and I'm pleased to announce today that we've now supplemented that collection with the last 6 volumes that were not previously available, so that set is now complete as well. Thank you. The collection's much more than books, though. There are 129 audio files of Gandhiji speaking on All India Radio. For each of those audio files, I extracted the English translation from the collected works and put that with the item. So after listening to the speech, listening to Gandhiji's voice, you can read the translation, then you can click into the collected works to see what Gandhiji said the next day and the previous day, and it lets you walk through the public speeches and letters of the last year of his amazing life. In addition to Gandhiji's audio files, there's quite a few audio files of Nehru, Rabindranath Tagore, Rajiv Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose, Professor Radhakrishnan, Sardar Patel, much more. I'm also really pleased that the collection has all 53 episodes of the 1988 Doordarshan production, Bharat et Koj, The History of India, as told by Nehru in that fantastic book he wrote while sitting in a jail cell, The Discovery of India. All 53 episodes have subtitles in English, and we've been working with an innovative Bengaluru startup named eBhasha Language Services. So for 6 of the episodes, including both of the Gandhi episodes and both of the Ramayana episodes, we now have subtitles not only in English, but in Hindu, Urdu, Punjabi, and Telugu. Now, our hope is to get all 53 of those episodes subtitled this way so that the history of India can be available to school children all across India, but also all around the world. We have 2 more resources relating to India. First, I found 90,000 photographs on the Ministry of Information servers that were publicly viewable, but not in a very convenient way. So I pulled all those in, took 12,000 of the photos that are high quality and historical significance, and I put them on Flickr, sorting them out by category. So if you want photos of trains or temples or rural India or cricket or pictures of Nehru and Indira Gandhi when she was a little girl, there they are. We've been watching those here on the screen behind us as we've been doing this program. Yeah. Finally, there's a collection, which is the one I've really spent the most time, and that is the Technical Public Safety Standards of India, over 19,000 official Indian standards. You can find them on the Internet Archive and also on my server at law.resource.org. Our world is a technical world today. Technical public safety standards cover areas such as the National Building Code of India, standards for the safe application of pesticides, standards for processing spices in food, standards for the proper operation of textile machines, the safety of bridges and roads, and much more. Many of these standards are required by law or enacted into law. They are the law. There are dozens of products that you cannot sell in India unless they are certified to meet a particular Indian standard. Products such as cement and household electronic goods, food products, automobile accessories. Knowing the laws that keep the factories and products safe is essential to the conduct of business in India and overseas. You cannot make in India unless you make by these rules. These codes are law. But this is about much more than the economy. Indian standards specify how to keep Indian cities and villages safe, how hazardous materials should be transported, providing proper exits in schools and public buildings in case of fire, how electricity should be safely wired. Every city official, school headmaster, building owner, and concerned citizen should have access to this important government information. This is also not just about the economy and public safety. There's more. It's about education. Indian standards represent the best codified knowledge of the technical world of India. The standards are created by eminent engineers, civil servants, and professors who volunteer their time. These standards are a crucial educational tool to be used by the 6 million engineering students in Indian universities. For the Indian standards, we have done much more than simply scan and post the documents. Close to 1,000 key standards have been transformed into modern HTML. We've redrawn the diagrams into the open SVG format. We've reset the tables. This means that you can view the standards on your mobile phone. It's easy to cut and paste high-quality diagrams and text into your paper or your software program. They've become much more usable. All across the world, not just in India, technical public safety laws are sold for very high prices, and many of them bear stringent copyright notices prohibiting duplication. The National Building Code of India, for example, costs 13,760 rupees. That's $213 for a book in India. And if you want to buy one outside of India, the foreign price is 1.4 lakh rupees. That's $2,000 for a mandatory building code. One would think that it is obvious that these documents, which have the force of law and govern the safety of our society, should be available. But all over the world, these public safety laws have been sold under onerous terms and caviar prices. This is a global problem, a problem that reaches beyond partisan politics and political divisions. I set out 10 years ago to change this situation, and it's been a long journey. In India, we presented our case for more open distribution of these government documents in a formal petition to the ministry. I was joined in this petition with affidavits from Sam, from Vince Cerf, the father of the internet, and by distinguished engineering professors throughout India. When the petition was turned down, we presented ourselves to the Honorable High Court of Delhi in New Delhi in a public interest litigation suit which is ongoing. I'm joined as petitioner by 2 of my colleagues in India, Mr. Srinivas Kodali, a transportation engineer, and Dr. Sushant Sinha, the creator of India Kanoon, the free public system that provides access to all court opinions and all laws. We are represented before the High Court by Mr. Nishith Desai, who is with us today, and his amazing law firm, and by the Honorable Salman Khurshid, the former Minister of Law and the former Minister of External Affairs. Availability of the law is not just a question for India, it's a global challenge. We have a similar suit in the Court of Appeals in the United States. We are represented by EFF. Mr. Mitch Stoltz is here today with us. He's one of our lawyers, and by Fenwick and West. There are 9 law firms throughout the world assisting us in petitioning our government, and all of them are working on a pro bono basis. They're working for free. Mr. Desai, Mr. Khurshid, EFF, all these lawyers all over the world. This is because they believe that in countries governed by the rule of law, the laws must be available because ignorance of the law is no excuse. The laws must be available for all to read because in a democracy, the laws are owned by the people. The government works for us. We own the law. We must know our rights and obligations if we are to be an informed citizenry. Democracy depends upon this. When Gandhiji was in South Africa, He was much more than just a lawyer. He was also a publisher. He sought to change the world through courts and petitions, but also in the social media of his day. He was a blogger. He was a news syndicator. He was cutting-edge high-tech in his use of publishing technology. When he opened the Phoenix Ashram, the very first thing they did was dismantle the printing press in Durban, load it into 4 wagons, each one of which was driven with a team of 16 oxen, and they hauled that press into the wilderness. When they got to the new site in Phoenix, there were no buildings yet. The first building they built was made to house the printing press. They camped outside till that was done. At Phoenix, everybody learned to typeset. Everybody spent time with the printing press. This was what Gandhiji called bread labor, doing something with your hands every day. Genesis 3:19 says that by the sweat of your brow you will eat your food, and that became a central tenet of his philosophy. Gandhiji said intelligent bread labor is any day the highest form of social service, for what can be better than that a man should by his personal labor add to the useful wealth of the country. Being is doing. That is a remarkable statement, one that we should all heed. We must all do bread labor, and we must also become what Gandhi called public workers, people working to make our society better, what Gandhiji calls a lesson of service instead of self-interest. Bread labor and public work were 2 foundations of Gandhi's philosophy, and those teachings motivated and inspired people to unite around common goal. Our world today is a perplexing place. I worked for 15 years in Washington, D.C., and I have never seen our government in such disarray. The United States is not the only country to face such chaos, so we certainly appear to have brought chaos to a previously unimaginable level. But all across the world, there are wars. There's the violence of state against state, but also the violence of the state against the people, the violence of people against each other, against women and children, against people who are simply different. There are shocking and horrific acts of terrorism. There is famine and disease, which we could stop if we only had the will. There is a shocking act of violence against our planet, violence that we may have committed in ignorance in the past, but that today we commit with full knowledge of the implications of our neglect. As individuals, it is tempting to disengage, to lead our daily lives and ignore the things that seem beyond our powers, to withdraw from participation in public life, to stop holding our leaders accountable, but that would be wrong. John F. Kennedy once said that if the peaceful means of revolution are made impossible, then the violent means of revolution are inevitable. And I put it to you that despite the chaos of our world, there is also hope. The internet makes possible universal communication, and it makes possible universal access to all knowledge. These are the peaceful means of revolution, but only if we embrace them. Education is how we transform our society. We must educate our children. We must educate our rulers. We must educate ourselves. John Adams wrote that the American Revolution was only possible because our founders were men and women of learning, people who knew history. He said that ignorance and inconsideration are the 2 great causes of the ruin of mankind. He said that a democracy cannot work if the citizenry is not an informed citizenry. He said that we should tenderly and kindly cherish the means of knowledge. Let us dare to read, think, speak, and write. Let every order and degree among the people rouse their attention and animate their resolution. In India, that brave and long struggle for Swaraj that led to the birth of a new nation, a struggle that led to that tryst with destiny, a struggle that inspired all the world to action. That struggle was also based on an informed citizenry. Gandhiji was invoking Justice Rana Day when he said, we must educate ourselves so as to warn our rulers. The men and women who led India into the modern world were scholars and historians as well as leaders. Look at the amazing books books that Nehru wrote in a jail cell. Look at the immense learning of Dr. Ambedkar, who led the drafting of the Constitution. Look at the worldwide reputation of Professor Radhakrishnan, a distinguished leader who was still a prolific scholar during his entire time in office. In India and America, the largest democracies in our world, we have a special obligation to be informed citizens. We must all be active citizens. To do bread labor, we must do public work. Universal access to all knowledge is the great unachieved promise of our times. By informing ourselves, by educating our children, by struggling to change the world instead of allowing the times to beat us into apathy, we can all walk down that road of progress. And as Martin Luther King so often said, the crooked ways will be made straight and the rough roads will be made smooth, until arm in arm we arrive at that shining city on the hill, that place with a library containing universal access to all knowledge. A free library, a library we can pass on as a gift to future generations. Please help us build that library. It's bread labor, it's public work. Jai Hind, God bless America. Thank you.
There is going to be a presentation of a brass bell, and Carl asked me to say a few words about it. As you can see, there is the figure of Lord Ganesha on the bell, and the puja bell in India has a very special significance, and the metal of which it is made consists of a mixture of many other elements. It has cadmium, chromium, nickel, zinc, copper, tin, lead, a whole host of them. And the type of materials, the elements which get into it, determine the sound. And the sound of the bell is actually arousing the chakras, which are healing the body. The vibrations which it gives out heals the body and the soul. And the sound is supposed to symbolize Om, the universal word associating us with the Almighty. So, and also, you know, the puja bell is always considered as a way of inviting the deity to accept our prayers, and of a way of warding off evil spirits, which interestingly is also in Japan, where the bell is used in temples for the same purpose. Lord Ganesha, which is portrayed, whose image is portrayed, whose figure is portrayed on the bell, is Vigneshwara, the remover of obstacles. And I think there have been a lot of obstacles which have been faced by Carl and others while doing this, and I'm sure by also Brewster, while doing this magnificent enterprise. And it is his prayers to him, which enables us to overcome these obstacles and ensure that the wisdom, the knowledge, the abilities which are embodied in Ganesha can come down to us.
It's heavy.
That knowledge ring.
That's great. The way to do it is just,
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your coming. Log on to the Internet Archive, upload books, read the Digital Library of India. Thanks a lot for being here tonight.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Okay.
May this be the beginning of something long.
Thank you.
जहाँ चित्त भयहीन, जहाँ पर ऊंचा रहता माथा हो, जहाँ न धरती को टुकड़ों में दीवारों ने बांटा हो, जहाँ मुक्त हो ज्ञान सत्य से बानी आलोकित हो, उसी लोक में देश हमारा भारत चिर जागृत हो, भारत चिर जागृत हो। जहाँ कर्म का रथ बिन बाधा हर पल बढ़ता जाता हो, रेगिस्तान न आचारों का विचार जल पी जाता हो, पौरुष का आवेग जहाँ पर रहता सतत अखंडित हो, उसी लोक में देश हमारा भारत चिर जागृत हो, भारत चिर जागृत हो, भारत चिर जागृत हो।
ना सदासिन्नो सदासित्तदानीं नासिद्रजो नो व्योमा परो यत् किमावरीवः कुह कस्य शर्मन्नम्बः किमासीत् गहनं गभीरं न मृत्युरासीदमृतं न तर्हि न रात्र्या अनासीत् प्रकेतः।
सृष्टि से पहले सत नहीं था, असत भी नहीं, अंतरिक्ष भी नहीं, आकाश भी नहीं था। छिपा था क्या, कहाँ, किसने ढका था, उस पल तो अगम अतल जल भी कहाँ था। अमरता भी नहीं, नहीं था दिन रात भी नहीं, हवा भी नहीं, सांस थी स्वयमेव फिर भी नहीं था कोई कुछ भी, परम तत्व से अलग या परे भी। कर वह जगह कवियों ज्ञानियों ने जाना, असत और सत का निकट संबंध पहचाना। पहले संबंध के किरण धागे तिरछे, परम तत्व उस पर ऊपर या नीचे, वह था बटा हुआ पुरुष और स्त्री बना हुआ, ऊपर दाता वही होता, नीचे वसुधा सदा हो गया।
सृष्टि ये बनी कैसे, किससे आई है, कहाँ से, कोई क्या जानता है, बता सकता है। देवताओं को नहीं ज्ञान, वे आए सृजन के बाद। सृष्टि को रचा है जिसने, उसको जाना
करता करता है वह अकर्ता, ऊंचे आकाश में रहता, सदा अध्यक्ष बना रहता, वही सचमुच में जानता या नहीं भी जानता है, किसी को नहीं पता, नहीं पता, नहीं है पता।
सारम्या नगरी महान राजा, सामंत जनवे कहाँ, विद्वत राजसभा कहाँ मद भरी, चंद्राननाए कहाँ, चारण किरण गान तान गर्वी, युवराज है अब कहाँ, डूबे सब अब रह गई हैं यादें, कालाय तस्मै नमः।
एक तू ही दे सकेगा मुक्ति मानव को, स्वर्ग पाकर देवता तक पूजते तुझको, कामना मेरी अपरमित तू उदारात्मा, कब बचाएगी कृपा की कोर ओ मुझको, कब बचाएगी कृपा की कोर वो मुझको। क्या अंतर है बोलो प्रभु जी, अंतर क्या है बोलो, अंतर क्या है बोलो। क्या अंतर है बोलो प्रभु जी, अंतर क्या है बोलो, अंतर क्या है बोलो। मैं हूँ तुम हो जाओ, नरक दुसह इस धरती तल का, स्वर्ग पहुँच कर सुख लूटूं या बना रहूं मैं पेट नरक का, स्वर्ग पहुँच कर सुख लूटूं या बना रहूं मैं पेट नरक का, बना रहूं मैं पेट नरक का। क्या होना है बोलो प्रभु जी।
ये ताज्जुब की बात नहीं है कि तमिल में ही सबसे पहले भक्ति कवि सामने आए। गुप्त काल तक संस्कृत केवल साहित्यिक भाषा बनकर ही रह गई थी और आम बोलचाल की भाषाओं में साहित्य की रचना संभव नहीं थी। ऐसे समय में तमिल ही एक ऐसी भाषा थी जो साहित्यिक और दरबारी परंपरा से भी जुड़ी हुई थी और बोलचाल और लोक परंपरा से भी।
याद नरक की प्रभु जी चरण शरण में ले लो